One of the world's biggest tech companies is facing off in court against the FBI. Investigators want Apple to unlock the phone used by one of the San Bernardino shooters. But Apple is saying no, and they continue to stand their ground. Natasha Fata following this story for us. Some bigger issues at play. Why don't we just start with where all this unfolds?
Absolutely. So this is something that's been in the works for the past several weeks, with the FBI, Department of Justice, getting involved in this ongoing investigation in California, where in December, 2 shooters killed 14 people in San Bernardino. Now, the FBI has possession of one of their cell phones, specifically Syed Farook's work cell phone, and they need the 10-digit access code to get into that phone for any potential information. Now, they've gone to Apple specifically and directly and said, give us the access code. So far, Apple has not relented. Now, last night, a California judge told the major tech giant, you have to comply. In fact, in 40 released documents from the judge, it seems as though Apple has been purposely trying to keep the FBI from getting that access code, or at least that's how it was presented in the courtroom. Now she is saying that you need to move forward, give the information up. Tim Cook, the CEO or the chief executive for Apple, has released a lengthy statement on their website today saying, no, they're not going to comply, that this specific request goes too far. We've got a bit of their statement, so let's pull that up to see exactly what he had to say. He's saying the implications of the government's demands are chilling. If the government can use All Writs Act to make it easier to unlock your iPhone, he goes on to say, it would have the power to reach into anyone's device to capture their data. In other words, David, saying that it wouldn't just stop with your phone. It could be your laptop. It could be any digital device. And it wouldn't necessarily just stop with the FBI or Department of Justice, that they're saying this is a backdoor entry. You could get information on anyone, and you could be anyone accessing it.
Okay, I mean, those bigger issues are at play, but what is so important that might be on that phone that they have to break into it?
Well, that's specifically the question they don't have the answer to, because ideally they would have the personal cell phones. They don't have those because both Syed Farook and his wife, Tashmeen Malik, destroyed their personal phones. They also removed the hard drives from their home computers, so the FBI hasn't been able to find that. So anything that could allow them to create a digital map to how they came to the point that they did, where they took 14 people's lives, and are they connected with a larger terrorist network, all of that is critical, and all of that could potentially be on that phone through text messages, emails, or even photographs. And that's what they're hoping to get their hands on.
All right. Natasha, thank you.
You're welcome.
You heard Natasha read part of Tim Cook's statement. 3 months ago, before San Bernardino and before the attacks in Paris, Cook gave us his insights into a position on this. Here's what he said on the CBS News magazine show 60 Minutes.
In the case of encrypted communication, we don't have it to give. And so if, like your iMessages are encrypted, we don't have access to those.
Okay, but help me understand how you get to the government's dilemma.
I don't believe that the trade-off here is privacy versus national security. I think that's an overly simplistic view. We're America. We should have both.
Jamil Jaffer is a cybersecurity law expert. He's also a former White House associate counsel during the presidency of George W. Bush. Jamil Jaffer joins me from McLean, Virginia. Hello.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dave.
Thank you. Cybersecurity law expert Jamil Jaffer, we just wanted to ask you your thoughts on what is the issue here.
Sure. So what the government's trying to do is say, look, Apple's encrypted this iPhone. They don't have the keys to it. The government doesn't have the keys. What the government would like to do is to be able to use brute force to break into the phone. So, try as many passcodes as they can to eventually get into it. The problem is the iPhone, as Apple has set it up, is after 10 tries, it'll wipe the phone. And so the government can't get in, therefore it can't access the data.
And so what would Apple want to fight against this with such fervor?
Look, Apple says this is a real problem for us. Our customers depend on our encryption and our security. It's part of our business model. And they say we're not going to do it. And they say asking us to give you access is creating a backdoor. There are obviously the FBI, and the judge disagrees. And this is going to be litigated here now in the courts.
Okay, so where does it go? I mean, are we just destined for the Supreme Court, and there'll be some broader decision on what the government can get from your phone?
Well, look, there's a possibility that's how it could end up. Right now we're at a magistrate judge, which will then go to a district judge, then the Court of Appeals, and then potentially the Supreme Court. There's a similar case winding its way through the courts in New York, and so we'll see what happens. But the challenge really here is that if you get a ruling from the courts or Congress has to step in, you're not going to likely to get good outcomes because they're not going to be able to, deal with the technology issues. And so really what needs to happen here is the Bureau, the FBI, and Apple need to come together and find a middle ground here. We've got to find that balance between privacy on one hand and security on the other.
What's that look like?
Well, look, I think that what the government's asking for is, look, give us the ability not to have access to the encryption. Don't decrypt it for us, but let us sort of, keep pushing that until we open it up until we find the code. That's not unreasonable. Apple says, look, if we give you that access, then everyone will be able to do that on every phone. And I think I don't know that that's true. I just don't know whether that's possible or not. But certainly Apple could tie that capability to this phone or that hard-coded device. Mm-hmm. In addition, there's a variety of other things they could do. And so, technology is very flexible, and we can innovate a lot. And I think this is an opportunity for us to innovate a solution rather than just simply stamping our feet and saying, no, no, no.
What about the idea of Apple somehow getting the information the FBI needs, giving it to them, but them being the ones to unlock it and not the government?
Yeah. Well, in the past, that's actually exactly what Apple used to do. Back before iOS 8, iOS 7 days, the government would go to a court for a locked phone, get a court order, give the phone and the order to Apple, and Apple would use their ability to unlock it. But what Apple has done since in the post-Snowden era is to make even that impossible, such that Apple itself doesn't have access to unlock it or to decrypt it. And so now they've sort of taken the keys and thrown the keys away and said, well, now government, you go figure it out. And that's a real challenge. That's a decision Apple's made on its own.
But on some level, I don't quite get how the FBI can't break this themselves, or the FBI.
Well, I think the reason is that Apple's designed the system, and look, these are smart technologists. They've designed it so that whether it's the FBI or Apple itself or any criminal hacker, you try too many brute force attempts, it's going to wipe the phone. And so I think the goal here is that Apple's tried to create a pretty secure device. Looks like they've succeeded. Now the government needs their help, and they're refusing.
Fascinating stuff. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
That is cybersecurity law expert Jamil Jaffer from McLean, Virginia.